Hello.
I was wondering how I was going to get into the meeting.
Did you have trouble getting in?
Yes, it says that it's there was the person had another meeting, was in another meeting.
Yeah.
That was Lydia's.
Yeah, Lydia, but Lydia is not on campus. She's on leave today, so I don't know what happened.
Hey, Shane. Hi, Sue.
Going?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. We should. Haven't spoken for a while, have we? I should give you a buzz.
Yeah, do that. I figured you'd be busy teaching.
Oh, yeah. Trying to keep up and stop a social change. That's I started ringing the students, so that's been good. Since they won't come to shoots, I'll go to them. I've had a couple of good shoots in intro as well, so.
Oh, that's great.
You know.
Are they just being shy, are they? Is that why they're not coming, or they're just busy?
There's 30 of them, and so, you know, percentages aren't there for that, so.
Yeah.
I just discovered that there's about nearly 10 students who are actually in Mackay. So,
oh, that's great.
So I thought I would email them and say, how about we have a sort of informal shoot on campus kind of thing. We can all
welcome, Matt. Thank you very much.
Not every week, at least it'll be done.
Hi, Julie. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Matt. We've got 1 minute. Hopefully we'll have a few more people joining us. I've just sent out a reminder to everybody. Recording, Lydia must have done that.
So we're going to talk today about contract cheating, and I'm prepared to, I purposely did not give you a PowerPoint, and I've been requested to talk about the basics about what contract cheating is, but you might just take a minute while we get ready to kind of think about any particular questions you have about it. Maybe write those down a little bit, as we'll do a deep dive into the whole phenomenon once we get started.
Hi, Matt. I've got a question which I'll probably want to ask you is, and you probably will cover it, is once you detect that a student may be undertaking contract cheating, how do you then thus prove it? I mean, because you can't, you know, you need evidence, but how do you get that evidence? I mean, it seems something that, you know, you're getting very contrary information, like the students displaying particular capability in one area and then is obviously quite incompetent in another area in terms of not being able to actually know the information, have an awareness of any kind of level of critical thinking about a topic, or know concepts, and yet they're performing extremely well in their assessment.
Excellent question. Excellent question. So why don't I get started, Julie? So I'm Matt Elliott. I'm a senior lecturer in Learning and Teaching Services. Some of you will know me in my role as chair of the Scholarship of Learning and Teaching Grant Program, which hey, proposed some research with us. But I also do a lot of work at the uni with academic integrity. So today what we're going to talk about is the phenomenon of contract cheating. So I'm going to define it. I'm going to describe a bit about the context of how it happens. We'll talk, as Susan said, how to recognize it and what to do. So how to recognize it and what to do is a constantly changing context. And so, so let me get started. Okay, so contract cheating. Contract cheating is obtaining an assessment from a third party and submitting it as your own. So plagiarism is cutting and pasting sections of a document into your assessment that are pre-written by somebody without any kind of referencing or citations, and passing that language off as your own. Contract cheating is you ask somebody else to create something for you and they do. And so contract cheating could be getting your partner to write you an assessment. Contract cheating could be purchasing a pre-written something from online. Or, as is more and more the case, it's giving a company or an author the assessment criteria and having them write you a particular assessment to match the criteria for that item. It is a huge global problem, and it is a huge industry. In fact, if you were to take an assessment question from a unit you teach, plug it into Google, you wouldn't have to scratch very far before you got to a website that would help you with your homework. We're here to help you with your assessment. We have expert people who will help you. And the temptation is everywhere because it's such a moneymaker. And so what happens is a student finds a contract cheating website, also called an essay mill, and they work with the people on that website. They can often pay a different amount of money for an expected mark. So you pay more for an HD than you do for a pass. In last year, we had a big whistleblower contract cheating case where an employee of a contract cheating company emailed us and said, student X on Brisbane campus has been acting as a broker and getting contract cheating assessments for students who then pass them in on their own. And the contract cheating company also gave us a Word document that had the names and the computer passwords of 33 students, of which only about, I think, 8 or 9 were still in our systems. The rest had graduated. And that's another thing that happens, is that students, after they have done a few assessments with the company, can be blackmailed by the company. Pay us money or we'll tell your university that you have received and submitted phony assignments. So it's this amazingly dark industry that's happening. So what we know university-wise is that in terms of academic misconduct, all types, plagiarism, exams, exam cheating, collusion, 80% of it is international students, and 20% are domestic. That's a ballpark, but that's about right. And so we are, as an institution, trying to figure out how to respond to that. So when people ask me about why we should care about academic integrity, and people call me I'm the university's cop, that I'm this policeman going around trying to get criminals. My answer to that question is really simple. We want students to graduate with the required knowledge and skills. And so in terms of nursing and midwifery, you've got, and social sciences, you've got professional accreditation bodies that tell the university what knowledge and skills students are supposed to leave with. And this is what academic integrity is about. You don't want a professional, you don't want to be in a hospital bed and have a nurse there who cheated her way through calculating dosages. And she's there to calculate the dose for the medication that you need. We want the people to have the knowledge and skills. And that's why we go after cheating, is not because it's wrong or because they're breaking the rules, but because we need them to have the foundational knowledge that we expect them to have, that professional employees expect them to have, that employers expect them to have. That's why we do it. So, contract cheating. So again, we were lucky enough to have a whistleblower last year. You may or may not have heard that we have a unit within the university that had 386 students in it, and we are suspecting mass cheating in it. I'm leading the investigation of that, and I think out of the 386, we've kind of exonerated about 200 of them so far, which is, and so we're doing a, but it's a big investigation to try to find who amongst all these people has purchased their assignment and who's actually written it. So Susan, your question, how do you recognize it? So in a small unit, small number of students, I almost call them participants, small number of students, there are things like writing style. So there are things like writing style. So suddenly the student's writing becomes very different. And you go, wow. And you go and you compare it to a previous assessment. And so that's a key thing. Suddenly the academic skill is different. The use of English is different. Obviously, someone has improved really fast. Another thing, though, is we start to look at the document properties. So again, I'm in the midst of this in this other investigation. You start to look at things like if you go to a Word doc and you open up the properties, which you can do from the file menu, who's listed as author and last saved by. So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily wrong that it's not always them. So sometimes students will share a template, and so the author will be a different person than the student who submitted it. Last saved by is a real interesting one. So you start looking at that. You look at editing and revision time, number of revisions and editing time, to start to see what's going on here. And so you look at the properties. My favorite is that when you in the Word properties, there's a field called company. And sometimes the contract cheating company puts their own name in there, like the writing company or the writing group. That's always fun. So to find something, last year we had the contract cheating company we were investigating was called Locus Rags. And in one of the courses, all the students had to submit a Gantt chart. I don't know if you know what those are, but it's like a project timeline chart. And if we uncropped it, so it's a graphic. If we uncropped it, we found the email address in one corner of a Locus Rags employee. So finding things like that is always great because it makes it very easy. So essays are the most cheated on. I thought we need to ensure authentic assessment linked to scenarios, etc. So we're all so many people are thinking about assessment in terms of contract cheating. So what makes something more prone to contract cheating is if it's an essay. Not all cheated assessments are essays, but if it's an essay, if it's unlinked to anything else in the unit. One of the things that we're looking at is moving toward developmental portfolios where the topic area stays the same, that the references and citations just kind of build on each other. The contract cheating companies tend to just kind of throw something together. So if you have a student who is working on some kind of a ongoing project and, gosh, what I did during the first assessment just kind of didn't work out, so I decided to do something different in the second assessment. Then you start to wonder. You start to think, what's going on here? Another way to do this, of course, is any kind of ongoing student interview about the topics, any kind of a reflective assignment. We tend to think that the solution is invigilated exams. That's always a challenge. First of all, there's something called exam cheating. So last year, there was a great experience that happened in the U.S. where an international student from China hired a young lady that looked like herself to sit in an invigilated exam. And so luckily the university caught it. The international student was deported. There's no real fail-safe way a single way to assess. The best way is where you're actually interacting with the students in real time, assessing their knowledge. So I've said a whole bunch of stuff here, and so, like I said, contract cheating is an evolving phenomenon. So in that 386 student case that a team of us is investigating, ITD found emails instructing the students how to hide the tracks. So what they should do to the assessment that they've received in order to try to fool the university into assuming it was theirs. So, and it was like this checklist of things. So the industry's getting smarter as well. And what we most need to do is to know our students and to interact with them about their knowledge, just in an ongoing way. So that is my little lecture on contract cheating. So hopefully it wasn't too boring. What questions do you have? What concerns do you have? What questions and concerns do you have for each other about academic integrity in nursing and about contract cheating?
I have one question, Matt. We have really large classes, particularly in first year, and it'd be very difficult for anybody to recognise different writing styles. We don't get to know our students. We have casual markers. Do you have any advice for us in that type of situation?
Well, okay, so casual markers, so challenging. Again, from the whistleblower investigation last year, I was really shocked because we were seeing things in retrospective after the students had graduated or previous terms that they were in. I was shocked that I didn't think some of the assessments met the AQF level, because these were all postgraduate, because the English was so bad, we could hardly figure out what they were going to say. And also casual markers, really how much time are they paid per assessment? You know, do they have 15 minutes to walk through an essay and assess it? You know, so what you can do is make sure that they get the same group of students each time, so they have some consistency about it. And you can do training with them on spotting cheating. They probably, and the question is getting the school to pay for that extra time. But what we have one project running this year that's building an academic integrity online module for casual staff. That's in production, but it probably won't hit the ground until next year. But casual staff are underpaid per assessment, and so they need a lot more scaffolding and support. Julie, did that answer your question? Okay, good. More questions. More questions for me, more questions for each other.
Hi, Matt. It's Kerry here.
Hey, Kerry.
Can I just ask, in terms of the design of assignments that may well reduce their opportunity to actually undertake contract cheating. So if, for example, if we had, and I'm just going to use a first year example where in order for students to complete one of their assessments, they have to access a video that is specific only to that particular course. It's actually a simulation, and they actually have to download certain resources off that Moodle site in order to complete them. They can't get anywhere else. Is that a way around reducing the chance of contract cheating, or do you have any suggestions of assessments that we can design to reduce the opportunity of contract cheating?
Okay, so I talked a bit about the developmental portfolio idea to try to make the assessments across the term more integrated, so it's harder to contract one of them out than the others. In our whistleblower investigation last year, and it's shocking, but it's true. Students gave their logins and passwords over to these companies so that the companies could log on to the unit Moodle site and get all those things you were talking about, to get those videos, to get the resources for around that assessment, to read the comments in the forums, maybe from the instructor who is giving specialized knowledge about the assessment. So, and these students are willing to do it. They're willing to give that away. Now it's huge. There's the I can't remember the password security policy, the password policy that says you're not supposed to give away your password and you might be expelled for doing that. But I wonder if any students really know about that policy. So the question again about how to make an assessment less likely to be contract cheated is again to specify it, to make it more specific, to make it more integrated in with the rest of the course. So it's harder for them to just to hire someone to do an isolated experience. And really it's also really a bit about knowing your students. And that's the hard part with these big courses that are geographically distributed. The uni is in the process of building some tools that you'll be able to look at a dashboard eventually and see anything that's suspect. You'll see the number of students that are doing X and Y. That's at least a year away. And we are currently testing a new product called Authorship Investigation. And this is a really interesting tool. It's not up to professional speed yet, but it's from the Turnitin people. And so if you're concerned about an assessment, you take the Turnitin number, the report number, you enter it into Authorship Investigation, and it does a linguistic analysis of that assessment compared to everything else they've done in Turnitin. And we start to get a different type of similarity. So that's coming down the pike as well. We'll see. Again, that's at least a year before I think it's going to be useful. But the university's working on it. The tertiary education industry is working on it. But the key things again are viva voce, talking to those students, getting them to answer questions. So I get this privilege of sitting in appeals committee meetings with these international students, and we say, we think you cheated this. Can you answer some questions about the content? And they can't. They have no idea what the idea about the ideas that are in the assessment. So it's a complex topic, and so I'll dig up some stuff for you and send it to Julie to distribute about designing assessments to reduce contract cheating. But it's complicated. Yes.
Sorry, it's Penny here.
Hi,
So
Penny.
back years ago, and Kerry, you'd remember this, when I went through university, we used to video ourselves doing particular skills and upload them. So they can't cheat in that because they physically have to be in that. We seem to have gone away from that and more online submission stuff. So that would be a way of avoiding contract cheating.
Yes,
Yep.
it would be. Oh, again, it's a similar thing to a Viva Voce, right? It's yes, yeah, absolutely. So Susan and Bronwyn had some questions here that I want to respond to. So first of all, Bronwyn, is there a way to identify IP addresses from overseas that are connected to Moodle? Okay, the answer is yes, there is. And so there's a Moodle log that it takes a little bit of manipulation, but we can get the geolocation of every IP address. So I'm a student. I'm an international student. I'm from India, and I have a VPN. And so that's a virtual private network. So it just kind of hides some of the activity. And I'm on Netflix India. So I'm watching my favorite Indian movie on Netflix India. And I log into Moodle. And what's going to happen is it's going to be an overseas IP address that's logging into Moodle. There are all these little glitchy things in the system. What IT is working on, and what I'm working with them on, is we're working on, we call it improbable travel. And that is, if the student is at home watching Netflix India and doing their homework, and they're using Firefox, and 45 minutes later we get another login from overseas using Chrome, different browsers, then we're starting to get more suspicious behavior. But so yes, it's a great question, Brian. We're working on the overseas IP addresses, but there are legitimate reasons why the student could be completely honest and have an overseas IP address. Just like at first we thought we had something when we had students having IP addresses, students sitting in Melbourne having Brisbane IP addresses. We're like, what's that about? And the answer is if there's something wrong in Melbourne, Telstra will just do all the traffic off into Brisbane, and there'll be a Brisbane IP address, even though the student is working away on their computer in Melbourne. So it's so complex. Okay, so the next question was Susan. Can the university pursue the contract cheating companies through legal avenues about accessing uni systems? It'd be great if we could. And we could if they were a company that was onshore. We possibly could. TEXA, our national accrediting body is going to be taking the leadership in contract cheating in the next year, and they are going to do law. They're going to push for laws, all sorts of laws about it. And the question is, do we make it illegal for students? Not just do we kick them out of the uni, but do we make it a crime? And so those questions are being asked at very high levels about this. So, but generally, most of the contract cheating companies are overseas, and so that makes the legalities of a challenge. Colleen, I'm going to come back to your question about large groups because it's a challenge. Rob asks, are quizzes more robust? Well, oh, sorry, that was a private question. So are quizzes more robust? The answer is, you can hire someone to log on and take your quiz for you. I mean, that is a form of contract cheating, is to do that. And I guess we've only got a few more minutes here, and oh, Shane, what sort of numbers are we talking about? What percentage of students, what is the motivation? Okay, so again, 80% of our overall misconduct is international students. It's hugely complex. One thing that I'm hoping to do in the next 6 months is to get an investigation going on the fact that I hear over and over and over again that the students who show up in the classrooms, the international students, don't have the English skills to match their IELTS scores. And they don't have the academic background to match their transcript. And so there's all kinds of questions happening right now about that. What is the motivation? A UniSA led a multi-institutional study of contract cheating for the last 2 years, and one of their findings was that students know it's wrong. These students who are doing this, there's nothing here about, oh, there's different understandings about academic integrity across cultures. They know it's wrong. They feel like they have no other choice. They're here, they don't have the skills to do it. They're here, they get to come to Australia. Their parents are paying for their education here. They can't do the work. They have to have a job. They can't do the work. And so what do? They hire out their assessments in the hopes that they can pass. And so it's a very complicated situation. We want to get rid of it. And so we've got to look at who we accept. We have to look at how we design our assessments. We have to look at how we talk to students and educate them. We have to look at how we advertise the penalties. And so if it's an international student, if they're expelled, they have to leave the country in 3 days. Maybe it's 4. Their visas are revoked. So there's all sorts of, it's a hugely complex issue, hugely complex from the institution. So, yes, Susan, we have, right now, I think we have more contract cheating cases at the postgraduate level. Shane, what's the percentage of students? Oh gosh, it's declining, oddly enough. But that's outside of contract cheating, it's declining. Contract cheating, it's increasing, and that's because we're starting to learning how to recognize it.
That was good, Matt. I was just getting a sense of two things, like the whole context in which it's occurring. You know, we're not just talking about people who are trying to rip us off. So increasing the penalty might be important, but we're talking about all that context of being in the country, not being properly trained, got to work, under pressure from parents. You know, we're not talking about people who are here to scam us or something.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know you wasn't your intention necessarily, but when we talk about this, it can feel a bit like every other student's trying to take us for a ride, rather than going with a very specific group of students and at a small percentage of them who go, it's not easy to contract cheat, right? So
no, actually,
as opposed to writing the essay, you know.
It's actually very easy to contract cheat. Yeah. We had one that I sent through to Leanne and Julian, that of a master's student in nursing, who put it on, what was it, Gumtree? Does anyone want to write my assignment? I'll pay you. I'm like, it wasn't our university.
It's a risk. I mean, it's a risk, you know.
Oh, I'm telling you, if you Google assessment support, and there are so many companies, and if you are naive enough, I was going to say stupid enough, if you're naive enough to give them an email address, you'll never hear the end of it, because it is such a huge moneymaker. And so what was happening in Brisbane was we had a student who was let's say, yes, I'll write this assessment. We'll have this assessment written for you for $100, and you'll have your 20-page assessment. And then she would get online and she would go to a website called Fiverr, and which is a kind of a contracting website, and she'd get it written for $40. And so she'd pocket the $60, right? And so we find that a lot of the contract cheating is happening in, I hate this term, third world countries, where the academics and the smart people, they want the money, and it's all outsourced in this way. It's an incredibly complex situation. So I'm aware that we're over time. So thank you. And Julie, do you have any last comments to say?
Oh, look, it's been a fascinating session, Matt. I'm always interested when you talk. And I'd love to get you back in 6 months, because I know there's a lot happening in this area within the university, say what's happening. But I do thank you for coming along, because, as I said to everybody in an email earlier, we're a little bit divorced from it in our school, a little bit protected. We don't have a lot of international students, but maybe that at the same time we're not being aware enough because of that. So I really thank you for your session, and it was fascinating. Tough.
Great, great. Always happy to chat. Have me back. Always
Love
happy to
it.
chat with you folks. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Take
Matt.
care.
That was great.
Bye.
Thanks, Matt.